Hi guys, this is Justin from Justin's Fountain of Youth, and today I wanted to do a relatively quick video on the thermic effect of food. What is it? Why do you care? Why should you care? And so very quickly, the thermic effect of food is just talking about the fact that whenever you eat food, some of that energy is lost to breaking down the food into components that your body can actually use, specifically for energy sources. So these profiles on how it breaks these down will be different based on the different macronutrients in general. So something like a protein will have 25 to 30% of the energy lost in this thermic effect, and that being heat. So you break it down and that energy gets lost as heat. That's also sort of the reason why you may have heard the term the meat sweats. If somebody is eating large quantities of meat at one sitting, it can actually get them flush and even sweating a little bit because of this effect that as the body is breaking it down, it has to do multiple different processes and it's losing actually a decent amount, almost a third, a fourth to almost a third of the energy to heat. And so, that's significant. You need to know about that. Next is carbs, which is around 10%. Carbs can vary a decent amount. That's a little bit why there's an asterisk, and that's why it's around. Very simple carbs like sugars will actually be less. Things that are more like starches, they take a little bit more, they're more. And the asterisk is pointing to a special case later where it can be even a lot more. And then last you have fats, which are, you lose almost nothing to the thermic effect. It's only about 2 to 3%. And so in that case, it can be very easy to see why, your body likes fats. They can not only are a very high calorie source, 9 calories per gram, but also when you ingest them, you're not losing much energy to this thermic effect. And then, as I mentioned with the carbs earlier, there is a special case for fiber. Fiber is a very interesting special case, and so you have two different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. Soluble meaning that it reacts, it can be dissolved basically in water, and so this is referring to things like gums. So if you read the ingredients label, you see something like xanthan gum. It basically partially dissolves in the water, and your body can essentially, it's not lost to the thermic effect, but it can only break down part of it. So even though carb is 4 calories per gram, soluble carbs, your body can only partially break down these soluble fibers, and so you only get half of the calories. So it's about 2 calories per soluble, and then insoluble, like I said, it just passes straight through. So it's not it's not digested at all when it goes through you. And so you can think of things, anything that you eat and you can as solid matter and recognize it on the way out on the other side would be a soluble fiber. Not going to get too much more into the details of that, but you can sort of understand that. And so these fibers are these special cases of carbs where they don't actually contribute a whole lot of calories because of this. And in fact, if you go look at some low-calorie food labels, some of them will talk about net carbs, and part of that is them saying, well, there are 13 carbs, but 8 grams of that are fiber, and so we shouldn't even count that as calories. And so they try and make it look as low calorie as possible, even though they don't always distinguish really this soluble versus insoluble. A lot of times they're just trying to push their marketing, so they just round everything into the insoluble, and they're like, oh right, there's only 4 carbs, so very low, even though a decent amount of that fiber might actually be coming from a soluble source. Now again, why does this matter? So why this matters is, in general, you might see a lot of people pushing for a high protein, high fiber diet whenever you're trying to lose weight. And part of the reason for that is this fact, right? You're not actually getting as many calories from these sources. If you have more fiber and more protein, right, your body isn't getting as many calories per unit of food ingested as you would from more carbs and fats. And so having this, your body, when you eat the food, it goes into your stomach doesn't actually have any sort of mechanism to measure the amount of calories that you're eating per meal. Mostly it's taught in there, your stomach is looking at how far it expands a lot of times. And so those sensors are really what sends the signal to your brain, hey, we've had enough food. And so if you're putting in foods that are essentially lower calorie density with fibers and proteins where you're not going to have as many calories after digestion, then essentially you'll get full without having as many calories. And so that's why that really matters. And so that's also the reason why you might see more of these higher protein, higher fiber diets pushed when you're trying to diet, just so that you can get that feeling of satiation from eating the food, but really you're not going to be ingesting as many calories. So hopefully that helps. Hope you made sense of this, why any of this matters. Have a great one.